Hey y'all, it's Meteorologist Erica Lopez, and we're going to get you through your forecast as we are tracking Hurricane Ian into parts of the Carolinas. But before we get to the forecast details, I want to show you a couple of videos from our very own Matthew Capucci and Aaron Jajak. So this first one is actually from Punta Gorda, Florida, moments before Ian's eye arrived, and this also shows power poles snapping, and you're seeing debris there on the roadways. So gusty winds over this area, and you're also seeing a lot of that water starting to come into this region. So definitely scary scenes across portions of the southwest coast there. Now let's take it to this next footage from our very own storm chaser, Aaron Jajak. Now this is drone footage and horrific images coming out of Fort Myers Beach here from the damage and devastation that was left behind by Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian made landfall on Wednesday as a Category 4 storm with sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. So devastation all across Fort Myers and portions of the Florida coast. So it's going to take days, and this landscape pretty much changed forever over this area. So definitely thinking about you guys across this region. Now this next video takes us to St. Augustine, Florida, and you guys were on the east coast here of Florida, and you were also susceptible to this type of flooding, and you were seeing here a neighborhood there in St. Augustine flooded, and even homes flooded for these areas. So also thinking about you guys affected by all of these floods across the state of Florida pretty much. And this last one takes us a little bit closer to home. If you don't know, we're located here in Orlando, Florida, but this is courtesy of the city of Kissimmee, where you're seeing extensive damage due to the flooding, and you're seeing extensive flooding all across this region as a lot of rainfall fell in a short amount of time over this area. So devastation pretty much across the Sunshine State, and Hurricane Ian now aims for portions of the Carolinas. Now let's take you to the MyRadar app and give you a quick update on what's going on with Ian. Like I mentioned earlier, the path of Ian takes it into portions of the Carolinas. It has reemerged over the Atlantic, and you're definitely seeing it there now, a Category 1 storm. It is set to make landfall in portions of possibly just to the east side of Charleston, between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, as a Category 1 storm. Eventually, as it makes landfall, creating all sorts of flooding issues, storm surge issues, and even gusty winds issues across portions of South Carolina, even extending into portions of the North Carolina region and even across Georgia. So definitely watching these areas as hurricane watches are issued, even tropical storm warnings are issued over this area, and even storm surge warnings. So several warnings in place for these regions. So if you're under this, make sure to listen to your local officials for what you need to do next over this area. So let's take you to what has happened over the last 48 hours in terms of that precipitation accumulation. You can see extensive amount of rainfall fell with Hurricane Ian, and you're seeing of upwards of 18 inches of rainfall, of course, across Southwest Florida, Central Florida, where we're located. A lot of flooding all around. Even you were seeing there earlier in portions of Orlando, and even extending into portions of coastal areas from Daytona Beach to even St. Augustine. So let's show you that water imagery here, because the last 24 hours you can really see Ian exiting Florida, coming into portions of the Carolinas. Something interesting with this storm system as well is it's pretty chilly in the state of Florida, something we typically see after these tropical systems move through this area. So definitely a very strong dynamic hurricane that made landfall over Florida and now coming into portions of the Carolinas. So let's time it out for you guys across the Carolinas. So we're going to go back here in time, and you can see starting early this morning that rain will start to increase. You're also going to notice the increase of wind. And then eventually, as we head into the early morning hours, a lot of rainfall with even a severe weather risk possible across portions of North Carolina, even South Carolina. And then eventually you can see the center of the system making landfall maybe between 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then eventually making its way across portions, inland portions of the Carolinas, and eventually maybe even affecting portions of the Midwest and Northeast as a lot of that tropical moisture starts to funnel into those regions. Now let's talk a little bit about storm surge, because storm surge totals have gone up just a little bit, especially along the Carolina or the South Carolina coastline there, with 4 to 7 feet of storm surge possible from Myrtle Beach all the way down to Disto Beach there. So definitely watching those areas very closely, 3 to 5 across portions of Georgia and even the Florida coastline, and all the way into portions of North Carolina. So all of you guys susceptible to potentially dangerous storm surge here in the next several hours. And of course, rainfall will be another risk factor with Hurricane Ian. It may drop up to 4 to 6 inches of rainfall in some of those spots, maybe up to 10 inches of rainfall across the South Carolina region. And then overall, across portions of the mid-Atlantic and possibly the Northeast, a lot of this moisture will start to funnel in those areas. We're also going to see some high rainfall totals over the next several days and throughout the weekend. So let's talk a little bit about the wind threat. As you can see from portions of Charleston inland, you may get up to potentially 110 mile per hour wind speeds here over the next several hours. In and around this region, may even get a 58 to 73 mile per hour wind gusts, and then tropical storm force winds over those inland areas. So I'm talking about you guys in Asheville, Greenville, potentially Raleigh, and even all the way down extending into portions of Jacksonville. And I also want you to keep in mind that we also have a severe weather risk. So not only do we have all of these hazards in play, but also the potential of seeing tornadoes with Hurricane Ian heading into your Friday afternoon. So I want you guys to stay alert. I know it's been a long couple of days, especially across the state of Florida, but we have to keep in mind the Carolinas, you're also under the risk in seeing the impactful threats with Hurricane Ian heading into the next several hours. And of course, we're going to keep you up to date all across our social media platforms, and we will have live updates tomorrow to track this storm into the Carolinas. So I'll see you then, and you guys stay safe.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, Xbox, and Windows.